right, how you guys doing tonight? My name is Dave Reilly, and I'm going to be giving a short presentation on cancel culture. So this is the third kind of iteration of me giving this presentation, and it was funny. The last time that I gave this talk, I had there was a lot of like announcements before at the Reagan Republicans meeting, and I got to thinking a little bit. You know, a lot of times when people give speeches, they give their credentials. It's all this credentialism. I've got a PhD, I've got my doctorate, I worked at Cato Institute for 20 years or whatever. I don't have any of those things, right? I went to music school, I'm not a PhD or a doctor, but I was reminded of St. Paul's epistle where he talks about, I'm not going to glory in my blessings, I'm going to glory in my stripes, in my shipwrecks, in my scourges, right? And that's my qualification. I have been canceled. So I know how this works. And it takes being canceled, I think, to really start to get to the depths of what this thing actually is. And we're not going to be able to get into all of that tonight. Tonight's going to be fairly cursory. Maybe it'll open up some understanding in some of you to get a sense of the full extent of what cancel culture actually is, who is running it, why it's happened here in America. So, the truth about cancel culture. In 2015, I was a radio host in Pennsylvania. I had my show on different radio stations, 6 hours a night, from 6 p.m. to midnight. And as it progressed, I wound up gaining some stature in the community, being inducted to Rotary, giving speeches at Rotary and various clubs in the area. It's Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, by the way, where we were. Yeah, those are the good old days. I was a young kid. I got involved with anti-drug activism. I'm a recovering heroin addict. I got overprescribed OxyContin like a lot of people up in this area, all across the country, killing millions and millions. I think the opiate epidemic has actually killed more people than World War I and World War II combined, as far as the American population is concerned. So that was a problem, and I knew about that too, because I had experienced it, and so I decided to do something about it. I put together a week of programming on the radio station where we would interview, EMS workers, counselors, judges, district attorneys, and I won an award from the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters, an Excellence in Broadcasting Award. Thank you. And so it was all going pretty well. I was rising through the ranks, getting involved in some Republican activism. You can see our good friend Ben Shapiro here. Oh, he is a troublemaker. And I got involved with the pro-Trump movement. I was one of the first radio hosts to really give an endorsement for Donald Trump, and this was actually me the night before the Deplorable. I had been assaulted by an Antifa guy that stole my hat, and we didn't let that, bring us down. We had a great time. So all of this was going on, and this was at the same time that Turning Point USA had just started to put out their Know Your Cultural Marxist Professors list, right? I don't know if any of you guys happen to remember that, but they were doing a list of all of the professors on campus that were promoting cultural Marxism. I knew a little bit about this, and so I started calling them out on my radio show. I used to do a segment called the Ramadan Bombathon, where every Friday I would go over all of the Islamic terror attacks that would happen that Ramadan and give running totals of the number of people injured, hurt, and why this was happening in the West. That really didn't make people happy. They were not very excited that I was doing these kinds of things on the radio. And they wanted any excuse to get me taken off. They had tried several times before. Comments I had made at a Trump rally, the 100 Days rally I got invited to, and I said something about restricting even legal immigration. And they were like, oh, he's a racist. It didn't stick, because I have arguments about the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, right? But that's not what this is about. So with my connections, I had become aware of something that was about to happen, a really big news story, right? Really big. And I wanted to make sure that I was on the cutting edge of that. And somebody had put me in touch with the organizer of this rally that was going to be happening in Charlottesville, Virginia. Do you guys know about that? Yeah, you guys know about that. The Reagan Republicans did not know about the Charlottesville rally. We gave him the only interview before the rally happened, right? That was on August 9th that we did the interview. It's burned in my head. I'll never forget. The rally was on August 11th. This guy, right? Now, I got canceled for this. I was there with my camera, with my drones. I was filming it, gathering news stuff that I would go on to sell to Discovery Channel, Associated Press. I'm trying to think of what was the other one, PBS. All bought my footage, right? And you see this long line of people with these tiki torches. You would think from the way that they treated me that I was one of them. I'm right here, right off to the side, no tiki torch, operating my drone, which is 300 feet above everybody. I was the only person to bring a drone to this rally. Now, you would think that if there was hate in America, you would want to document that and get that blasted out as far as possible so people are aware that there's hate in America, right? But no, that's not what happened to me. They bust in 75 Antifa activists to protest the radio stations, and it lasted about a week, every day. Bomb threats, death threats, gun threats. Half of the staff quit. The rest of the staff left and didn't show up to work, right? I had to cancel my radio show that Monday evening, and it was absolutely insane. We had camera crews parked out front of our house for a week. So, this is the kind of stuff that was going on. Turn off racist scum WHLM. I'm a straight white Republican and deeply ashamed of the hatred in my country. People like this. And like, if you can see, I don't know, it might be small, but he's got a little Antifa sticker there. You know, upstanding moral citizens, the good guys, right? One of the good guys. So this is what apparently moderate, can I get a water, by the way? It's up there on the top. Thanks.
Want anything in it?
Oh, some knockout juice. So these are the, the moderate, anti-racist, nice guys. These are the good guys. Thank you. We lost pretty close to $500,000 in a day. Wow. My parents almost lost their business. You know? One of the other aspects of this thing is that, like, my dad has ground his teeth down because of the PTSD from all of this, from the fear that somebody would come to our home and do something. These are the newspaper headlines. Bloomsburg University turns off WHLM. Staffer's video of Virginia rally triggers backlash. Broadcaster suspended. I actually suspended myself. We had to cancel our Christmas parade because of all of the threats from activists who would disrupt it. The United Way called me a Nazi. Berwick Bulldog football, right? The football for the local high school team pulled their season from the radio. So the kids wouldn't have this outlet for, their sports, for crying out loud. Had nothing to do with anything that any of them did. Had nothing to do with the sports commentators. It was, I went there and I filmed people doing a thing. Therefore, I ideologically agree with everything that they did. Guilt by association. So, how did I overcome this? I sued the living crap out of them. The United Way, WYOU, WNEP, WBRE, the United Way, the Democrat Party of Columbia County, and 28 Antifa activists. It's been going for 3 years now. It's cost me $30,000. But, don't applaud. But the thing about it is that they planned everything out in the open on Facebook. So you can scroll through the comments. We got to get him. Let's get his dad now. Let's shut that business down forever. You could see it all out in the open. People cross-sharing, people owning the event to go protest the radio station. So we were able to gather all of that data and argue that they were negligent, that they had an invasion of privacy, defamation by implication, right? So although the newspaper got it right that I took a video of a rally, the television station said that I participated in it. And what are you going to do once that's out of the bag? I had to move to Kansas. I couldn't get a job at McDonald's. Really, it was pretty bad. I still have PTSD over it. I can't go back to Pennsylvania. I get in a very bad headspace, and that's what this is supposed to do. Cancel culture is a part of a shaming and peer pressuring, and they want to change you to ideologically conform with everything that side wants you to believe, or else. And they know that social ostracism can seriously damage you, right? That can actually cause damage when you are atomized from one another, when you're cut off from one another, when you are afraid to go to the store because somebody might recognize you and start screaming at you, right? I live 3,500 miles away now, and I still don't like going out to the store. So it's probably never going to leave. And that, okay, so good, they won. They got a little win with me. The judge wrote an opinion that calling somebody a Nazi, whether they are or aren't, it's impossible of being defamatory. Wow. Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said. And of course, we've seen people in Portland, which is much closer to here, get shot cold from the back, right? A guy was shot cold. He was assassinated in Portland for being a Donald Trump supporter, which makes you a Nazi and a racist, right? Doesn't matter if you're walking around with a tiki torch or if you've got a MAGA hat on, you're the same thing to these people. So to make our study of cancel culture a little bit deeper, there are two kinds, maybe more, but two for my purposes here. Community cancellation, which is public shaming, social ostracism, and peer pressure to get someone to change, to get them to shut up, to get them to no longer be a problem, lay down like a doormat so they can walk all over you. The second aspect of cancel culture, which thank God I haven't experienced, but all of my friends have, institutional cancellation. Loss of social media, loss of your bank accounts, loss of your citizenship, your rights, jail, internment, and possibly execution. And that is not an overstatement. That is not an overstatement. And we'll go through now a short study on several figures who have been canceled. Anybody know who that is? You can probably read it. Socrates. I would argue that Socrates was probably one of the first people to be canceled. He preached about the one, the concept of the one. He was a philosopher. So this was the one God above all the other gods. It was never written down. Plato never transcribed this talk. But he was put on a show trial, falsely accused, and imprisoned, actually in the same prison that St. Paul was imprisoned in when he was in Athens, interestingly. And he was executed for preaching against the gods of the state. I'd say our second major cancellation in history, Jesus Christ. We're coming up on that this week. It's Holy Week. He's falsely accused, called all these names. He's called a blasphemer and preaching against the temple and all this whatnot. And he is put on a show trial where they whip up a mob and they call for his death. And they tortured him and they killed him. Right? That is like the ultimate form of cancellation. And I would argue that every other kind of form of cancellation is a mirror of this. So when you see the left talking about, I got canceled because I said, some word on Twitter 10 years ago, right? This doesn't really count here. There's a difference. When you speak the truth and you get canceled for that, that's what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is speaking something good and moral and getting canceled for that. Now they are canceling Dr. Seuss. Have you seen this? Dr. Seuss is now racist, and they've got to remove his books from the libraries, like Fahrenheit 451. So a lot of people, when I gave the first 2 iterations of the speech, I said, when did you hear about cancel culture? They said, Donald Trump. Donald Trump got canceled. That's the first time I ever heard of it. I'm like, okay, I guess I can work with that, maybe. So I've been able to revise and expand. Mike Lindell. People also know about Mike Lindell, right? Mike Lindell was dropped by 18 of his retailers, and they would no longer sell his products. It's a form of economic warfare. He was also pulled on live TV off of Newsmax, right? So much for free speech on Newsmax. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not endorse Mike Lindell or what he's saying Donald Trump is going to be back in August. He's out to lunch. It's not going to happen. You got to stop plan trusting, right? But nevertheless, he was canceled. His pillows aren't back in those stores. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene. Who knows her? Well, Twitter temporarily suspended her account the day that they were voting on whether or not they were going to eject her from the Congress. So she was unable to communicate, right? We've got tweets about calling for her to be removed from Twitter, that she's a dangerous far-right American patriot and she needs to go. Who remembers this guy? Milo Yiannopoulos. Thank God, praise him, he is straight now. At least so he says. He was the first politically motivated Twitter deletion. They deleted this guy because he was saying conservative things. That was back in 2016. So if you are just hearing about cancel culture because of Donald Trump, where have you been for the past 5 years? He was also banned from Parler, believe it or not. Some of you are nodding along, so you might know that even Parler, the supposed free speech website, also banned Milo Yiannopoulos. Alex Jones, Infowars.com. Alex is probably the most complete form of cancellation. They got him off of YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, MailChimp, and whatever other social media service was out there within 12 hours. All of them pulled. They even pulled his app from the App Store, so you can't get a hold of his radio show on your iPhone. How about Stefan? Not necessarily. How about Stefan Molyneux? Anybody know him? He runs a philosophy show based out of Canada. And this one, I wish Beverly was here because I didn't have this piece of information the first time we did it. He was banned from YouTube and Twitter within days of one another, but he was also the very first person to be banned from MailChimp, which is something that Aaron has been dealing with and something that Beverly, one of our local Republicans, has been dealing with. So this happened back in March 2021? No. That was probably the date that I screenshotted this. July of 2020 was when MailChimp started to become activists like this. James Alsop, anybody know of him? A couple people nodding. He gave a couple of speeches for Donald Trump back during the initial campaign in 2016. He got canceled from Facebook and Instagram even though he didn't use them. He didn't post anything on them. He had a YouTube show and he had a podcast. And because those YouTube shows and podcasts were deemed wrongthink, they also deleted his Facebook, even though he never used his Facebook for any kind of violation. Nick J. Fuentes, we know about him. He led the Stop the Steal rallies in Washington, D.C. this year, right? He had his YouTube removed and his DLive removed and several other accounts that he had. I think he was on, I can't remember, this Clubhouse or something like that, some other new app. So he got deleted by not just the left, but also the right. It was Republicans that were also calling for him to be canceled. Ben Shapiro was one of them, by the way. How about Michelle Malkin? We all know about Michelle Malkin. This poor woman has also been canceled. Excommunicated by Young America's Foundation. Her crime? Hanging out with Nick Fuentes. That's her crime. Michelle Malkin is attempting to normalize white supremacy. These two guys, Red Ice TV, don't know if you've ever heard of them. Henrik and Lana, they're good people, but of all of these so far, they are definitely approaching some of the worst persecution. They still have their Twitter, right? You can still get to them on Twitter, but they are not allowed to even have a bank account. They have had their bank accounts frozen, seized, and they can't get one. They cannot get credit cards. They can't get home loans. They're completely dependent on others to do these kinds of financial transactions for them. This is the SPLCs right up on them. And then another local, Brittany Pettibone, right? She was up here. She gave a speech at the local IHOP to the Pachyderm Club, or at least she tried. And guess who showed up? It doesn't look almost the same as what happened to me. It's kind of funny. It's the same people. Same people. And that's right here in Kootenai County. So it's active here. And that's more of the community kind of pressure side of this thing. Her husband, Martin, had his visa pulled. They were supposed to get married. And the American government pulled his visa and deported him. They also got arrested, thrown in jail for 3 days in England. And now they're no longer allowed in Canada, England, and Australia because they want to keep their country and their culture and their heritage. That is the evil crime that they have committed. Not allowed. Not allowed to have Facebook, Twitter, bank accounts, home loans, communication. You know, where's it going? Internet? Cell phones? Parler, the free speech app, got deplatformed by Amazon. So this whole free market, just go build your own. Guess what? We'll just yank you if they don't want you out there. They don't want competition. So they pulled them unilaterally. And even Gab. Who here knows about Gab, right? Oh, wow, this is great. You guys are doing good. You're keeping up with the technology. Get Bitcoin, too. So this is a platform founded by Andrew Torba. He's a Christian, very good guy. And he's getting hacked and held hostage by hackers in touch with Mother Jones, BuzzFeed, motherboard outlets. Here's the Mother Jones article smearing him as if this gives them the pretext to delete Gab. Joe Biden's going after him with Operation Choke Point. Do you know about that? Operation Choke Point is where the government will call your bank and say, hey, this guy's high risk, you shouldn't let him have a bank account. Or this guy's high risk, you shouldn't let him have a credit card processor. That happened to my boss. We can't accept credit card payments on the internet anymore. So it becomes this musical chairs of one after another after another. You get one payment processor, and then you use it for 2 months, and you get the next payment processor. You use it for 2 months, and so on, and you just keep shuffling through. Gab got shut down from their 5th bank in 5 weeks. This was on March 16th, so just this month. It's happening right now. Cancel culture. What do all of those people have in common? Freedom? Not anymore. Go ahead.
Liberty-minded people for the most part.
Yeah, kind of, yeah, for the most part. She said they're liberty-minded people, for the most part. They're all right, yeah, that's true, they are all right. But no, the biggest thing is that they have in common is who is canceling them, right? Who is canceling them? It's not the left. It's not necessarily the right or the left. You got to get outside of that paradigm. It's not just the media. It's somebody very specific. You're getting close. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. Have you guys heard of the ADL? Do you know what this is? Okay. Everyone. Everyone financially backs them. In a book written in 1998 by Laird Wilcox, he was one of the chief prosecutors for the American Civil Liberties Union. We would know of them as a fairly left-wing organization, but they used to stand for good things. They used to say, you know what, the law says this, you've got to enforce the law. So you're not going to be able to read that. These are scans that I took of the pages, but the big headlines, ADL and book censorship. Accounts of ADL book censorship and suppression are so prolific that one almost does not know where to begin on the subject. How about the ADL and internet freedom? From its earliest years, the Anti-Defamation League has been hostile to the idea of an uncensored forum for bona fide freedom of expression. In its continual campaign to keep what it regards as hostile criticism of Jewish institutions or individuals from public expression, the Internet provides a special challenge to censors of this kind. In 1990, for example, the ADL attacked Prodigy Service for allowing what it called anti-Semitic messages online. This is 1990. There's another article that I got from 1992 Home Office Computing Magazine where they were trying to install programs on ISP servers. So if you tried to go to Red Ice website or something, it would redirect you to adl.org for de-radicalization and education. It would also send them your IP address and your home address, so they would know where you live. They'd be able to do all kinds of research from there. This has been going on for a long time. That was in 1990. Here we are today, in 2017. ADL to build Silicon Valley Center to monitor and fight cyber hate. A Meteor Network provides seed funding. Does anybody know who Pierre Omidyar is? He's the guy that founded eBay. Guy is almost richer than God. But you don't hear about him because his name is not George Soros. So nobody talks about him. But he is one of the main funders of this online hate index, which is a project of the ADL. Men's rights, that's hate. Donald, hate. Republican. Look at this. It says, you can't read it, but that bubble there is Republican. Guns are cool. Conspiracy. First Amendment, new right, 2016 elections. This is what they're calling hate. These are all key words that trigger their algorithms to flag you for hate speech. The Center for Technology and Society from the ADL, which is again another collaboration. How do we ensure justice and fair treatment for all in a digital environment? How do we counter online hate, protect free speech, and use social media to reduce bias in society? The Center of Technology and Society takes ADL's civil rights mission and applies it to the 21st century. Civil rights as long as you aren't white. Honestly, that's what it's about. That's a big part of it. Despite YouTube policy update, anti-Semitic white supremacist channels remain. Does anybody know who this guy is? His name is Rick Wiles. He's a pastor down in Florida. He's been on like every major Christian network for 25 years, and now they're going after him. They went after him. They deleted his bank accounts too, and his PayPal account, and his daughter's PayPal account, who runs a missionary orphan service out of Ecuador, right? Like bringing children who don't have homes, that are neglected, and getting them in good homes. They deleted their bank account. On January 7th, ADL called on Twitter to suspend accounts supporting QAnon. On January 11th, Twitter reported removing 70,000 QAnon accounts, but it didn't take any action on Marjorie Taylor Greene's account. They're bragging. They're bragging that they got QAnon people deleted from Twitter. Facebook has finally banned QAnon from all its platforms following months of requests to do so. We hope that this is a sincere effort to purge hate from Facebook properties and not just another knee-jerk response to public pressure. The ADL also partners with law enforcement. Who do you think trained Derek Chauvin how to put his knee on George Floyd's neck? You got it. You got it. The ADL also sends books with white supremacist symbols to be aware of. This is not a joke. This is a screenshot from their website that I took this morning. They also have the Coors beer symbol. The Coors beer symbol is a white supremacist symbol now for Coors beer. Yep. Numbers are racist. The Celtic cross is racist. St. Michael the Archangel is racist. It's all on their website. It's not a joke. I mean, it was a joke in 2017 and in 2018, and a lot of you are still laughing now, and I get it. You got to laugh so that you don't go crazy. But this isn't a joke at all. So Donald Trump got banned from Twitter, right? Jonathan Greenblatt, who heads the Anti-Defamation League, on Friday said that banning Trump was, quote, an excellent step and a fitting end to a legacy of spewing hate and vitriol. The ADL was a part of a coalition of civil rights and advocacy groups on Friday calling for Twitter to ban Trump's account. And what did they wind up doing when they did, by the way? They wound up banning his account when he was tweeting messages to the people in the Capitol, trying to tell them to be calm and be cool and go home. They don't want that. They don't want that. They wanted the Capitol to go up in smoke. They did not want a message from the president telling his people to stand down, to get out. So they suspended his ability to communicate an unauthorized message in their eyes. Lana Lochtef, ADL write-up. Red Ice TV, ADL write-up. Michelle Malkin, ADL write-up. Nick Fuentes, James Alsup, Stefan Molyneux, Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Mike Lindell, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And by the way, look at how awful this is. Marjorie Taylor Greene's article is right here, right next to Holocaust denial content on Facebook. What does that do? That rewires your brain to think that Marjorie Taylor Greene is like a Holocaust denier, doesn't it? When you see these words that have been so charged with emotional meaning, and you start putting things next to them in the same article, even though they're completely unrelated. I can see some of you are even looking uncomfortable just saying those words out loud because it's been emotionally charged. It's been weaponized. The ADL urges Donald Trump to reconsider America First and foreign policy approach. No, Donald, you got it wrong. You're supposed to put America last. You didn't get the memo. ADL calls for President Trump to be removed from office. Who elected these people? Who elected the ADL? Who gave them the right to tell us what we can and can't say and who we can and can't elect? And now we've got some serious problems. Dick Durbin reintroduces a Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act bill. Have you heard about this? It's like SB 963, sorry. This is a bill to authorize dedicated domestic terrorism offices within the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to analyze and monitor domestic terrorist activity and require the federal government to take steps to prevent domestic terrorism and for other purposes. We don't know what they are because they haven't made the text of the bill public. And by the way, if you guys have been following the news, the two senators who co-sponsored this piece of trash, Duckworth and Hirono, the two senators that said that they would no longer vote for any more white men in Joe Biden's cabinet, which is a violation of the 1965 Civil Rights Act, no matter how you cut it. So from the Jewish News of Cleveland, Jewish senator blasts Republicans for burying a bill that would target domestic white supremacist terrorists. Guess when this was published? October 1st, 2020. Months before January 6th. Before the Capitol riots, before the Stop the Steal rallies, before the looming threat of white terrorism in America. They already had this agenda, and they have set the stage to run roughshod over American patriots, over people who love their country, over people who want to put America first and are sick of putting our own people and our own culture and our own nation last. This is not a very tall order here. This is not hate. This is like common sense. Same article. The Anti-Defamation League, which backs the bill, decried the delay, which could effectively kill the bill as this congressional season winds down. They really want this piece of legislation. In his book, Christopher Simpson's Science of Coercion, he talks about psychological warfare. And that's what cancel culture really is. It's a form of psychological warfare. He says its primary utility has been the ability to suppress or distort unauthorized communication among subject peoples, including domestic U.S. dissenters who challenged the wisdom or morality of imperial policies. Right? Imperialism, I guess. All of these foreign wars in Syria and Iraq, over and over sending our children off to die in foreign wars so that we can protect opium fields, so that we can protect our petrodollar. Meanwhile, we've got people dying of heroin overdoses by the thousands. We've got gas that's going to be going up past, what, $3, $4, $5 a gallon? Our people are going poor, and we are spending all of our money on these imperial wars. This is a form of psychological warfare. And if you speak out against it, you're canceled. Right? So what do we do? What do we do? First of all, we have to be armed with information. We have to know what we're dealing with here. And we are not dealing with some small Looney Tunes guy living in downtown Coeur d'Alene that's going to show up and wave some sign. These guys have institutional backing. Antifa has institutional backing. Right? Now, if these Antifa people get a little too convicted of what they are going to be doing here, the government will crack down on them to keep them in line. But for the most part, they serve the government's purposes. At least Joe Biden's government's purposes, right? The deep state's purposes. So we need to understand these different dynamics that are happening here in America. And we need to prepare. And we need to prepare by doing things like creating parallel media, parallel food distribution networks, a lot of the things that you guys have been talking about doing here. And one of the ways that I think, identified in this area, the biggest thing that we need is a media that is on our side. A media that is not going to pile on as soon as an activist has called you a racist, or a homophobe, or a bigot, or whatever. We need to be able to have solidarity between the people and our media, our voice, our tribune, that will actually speak truth to power. And I know Aaron's got a great thing going on here with the People's Pen. I'm really excited to hear more about it. That's print. I'm working on something else. I'm working on digital, because people are still on the internet. So I've got a project that we're getting ramped up on, something that will be able to be shareable and easy to spread information. Instead of having to follow the right 25 people on Facebook, you can send them one link, and then they can get to all kinds of other articles from there. They can get all kinds of other information that they didn't even know they needed. So that's the idea. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, feel free. I'll be in the back of the room. But that's the presentation. That's all I got for you guys tonight. So thanks. One question, yeah.
Okay, one question. That's really cool what you're doing. Now, how are your servers protected compared to GoDaddy or anybody else's?
Well, there's different. So there's hosts. There's domain name servers. There are also the domain hosts, right? I am paying for all of this out of my own pocket. And we are still kind of on the good graces of the establishment system. But there are things coming out. If anybody is into web development, you should look at Handshake. Handshake is a new tool that is a decentralized way. When you go to a website and it is .com, right? Somebody owns that extension, com, standing commercial, or .org, right? Standing for organization. Somebody owns that, and what they do is they lease that name to you. So if you want a .com website, you have to pay a lease to get that .com. What Handshake does is it allows you to own your own domain, your own top-level domain. So .idaho or .whatever.
It's a Handshake or just go, you hit www.handshake and you're there?
I'd have to look again on the computer. It's different. It's not .com or .org. But if you Google Handshake name hosting, so that's one element of it, right? There's a whole movement of people, really good people, that are right now working on creating a decentralized internet based on blockchain, based on cryptocurrency kind of stuff. Cryptocurrency is not just a store of value. right? It does serve functions. It does serve a purpose. There's a great website. I was sharing it. I don't know if all of you are on this chat app that I'm on, but I was telling people about Odyssey. Odyssey is a new YouTube alternative that runs on blockchain. So when you upload a video to it, it can't get deleted. And you get paid for watching, and you get paid for uploading. Just like Brave browser, right? Brave is a Firefox and Google alternative. You can browse with Brave, and you actually get paid in cryptocurrency to be advertised to. It's fantastic stuff. So there is a movement of people that are building this kind of decentralized internet, because we are just beginning to feel this kind of oppression, I guess you could say, on thought, on freedom. We are just beginning to feel it. Palestinians have been living with it their entire life, right? So there are other people out there that have been dealing with this and have been coming up with ways to do what needs to be done, to be able to spread a message, to be able to share an idea, to be able to find some small nook to have your family and have some sense of happiness left, right? And so there are people all over the world that are working on this. And so that's some news for hope. It's making it harder for the oligarchs to shut us all down. So for anybody that, I'm going to be putting this online, if anybody, if you've been canceled, there's hope. There is some life after that. It does disrupt your life seriously. I know lots of people that have committed suicide because they got canceled, you know. There's Andrew Dodson, right? I think I got the name right this time. Andrew Dodson killed himself after Charlottesville. He got doxxed, his community rejected him, he was atomized, he was isolated, and he got back on heroin and he killed himself. So, I mean, this has very serious consequences. This is not fun and games. This isn't just like, I'm going to troll the left on the internet. It's real. Yeah, I do, yeah. Anyway, that's it. Thank you guys for listening to me go off.